At a baby shower, my husband's parent demanded I give my brother-in-law the Rolex I bought for my promotion. I laughed until she said, "It's what your husband would want." My husband blinked and said, "Actually, I do." I stood there frozen until I whispered, "Then you deserve each other." Everyone went silent as I took the watch off and threw it into the cake. I always thought if my marriage ever fell apart, it would be slow. A gradual, painful decline where we fought more than we laughed, where the silence between us grew louder than the words. I never imagined it would come crashing down in a single moment. One conversation, one betrayal, one choice so absurd that I would laugh if it weren't my own life. But that's exactly what happened. The day started off fine. Well, as fine as a family event with Bryce's family could ever be. My sister-in-law, Melina, was pregnant, and my mother-in-law, Diane, had insisted on throwing the kind of baby shower that belonged in a magazine. She rented out a ballroom in a Connecticut country club, had expensive floral arrangements flown in, and catered the entire event with food none of us actually wanted to eat. Everything was extravagant, because Diane didn't know how to do things any other way. Bryce, my husband of 5 years, and I arrived together, dressed appropriately for the occasion. I wore a navy blue dress, simple but elegant, and on my wrist was my Rolex, the one I had bought myself 2 months earlier when I got promoted to senior executive at my firm. It wasn't just a watch to me. It was proof of everything I had worked for. I didn't grow up like Bryce. His family had money, old money, and they never let me forget that I didn't. I was the outsider, the career woman who didn't fit into their world of socialites and charity luncheons. But I didn't care. I built my own life, my own success, and that Rolex was a symbol of it. The event dragged on, filled with forced laughter, uncomfortable small talk, and too many people pretending to like each other. I spent most of it sipping on watered-down champagne and dodging Diane's passive-aggressive comments about how Melina was glowing, while I still hadn't mentioned kids. But everything truly fell apart during the cake cutting. We were all gathered around the massive, 3-tiered cake Diane had ordered from some exclusive New York bakery. The thing was ridiculous, layers of buttercream, hand-painted details, edible gold flakes. Melina, beaming, had just picked up the knife when Diane turned to me with that sickly sweet smile she always wore when she was about to say something horrible. "You know," she said loudly, I was thinking, "you should give that Rolex to Donovan." At first, I actually thought I misheard her. I blinked. "What?" She gestured at my wrist, like I wasn't already clutching my champagne flute tightly enough to crack it. "It would mean so much to him," she continued, her voice smooth and calculated. "He's had such a tough year, and it's what your husband would want." My brain stalled. I had no idea how to respond, because the sheer audacity of that statement left me speechless. Donovan, Bryce's younger brother, was standing across from me, looking far too pleased with himself. He had always been the golden child, the family's favorite, despite the fact that he was a 32-year-old man who had never held a stable job in his life. He partied, burned through his trust fund, and got bailed out by his parents whenever he screwed up. Meanwhile, I had worked every damn day to get to where I was, and now Diane was acting like I should just hand over my Rolex to him? I let out a sharp laugh, one that made a few people shift uncomfortably. "You're joking, right?" Diane's face remained unreadable. "Not at all, dear." I turned to Bryce, expecting him to step in and shut this down, to tell his mother that she was out of line. But instead, he cleared his throat and said, "Actually, I do." The noise of the party faded to nothing. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. I stared at him. "You what?" Bryce had the audacity to look sheepish, like he wasn't about to completely humiliate me in front of everyone. "Donovan's been struggling," he said, glancing at his brother, "and he could really use something nice." "It's just a watch, babe. It's just a watch. Just a watch." My stomach turned to stone. It wasn't about the watch. It was about what it represented. My work, my independence, my success, things that Diane had never respected and Bryce had apparently never valued. And now, my own husband was telling me to give it away. To Donovan. Donovan, who was watching this unfold with an infuriating smirk. I felt something inside me snap, something cold and sharp, and before I knew what I was doing, I reached for the clasp of the Rolex. Slowly, deliberately, I unfastened it. The room was silent now. Everyone was watching. I could feel the weight of their stares, the tension crackling in the air. Bryce sighed in relief, like he actually thought I was about to give in. I held the watch in my palm, weighing it for a moment. Then I looked Bryce in the eye, then Diane, then Donovan. And then, without breaking eye contact, I tossed the Rolex. Not to Donovan, but straight into the center of the massive, elaborately decorated baby shower cake. The expensive buttercream frosting splattered in every direction. The Rolex landed with a soft thud, sinking halfway into the layers of cake and filling. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Diane let out a strangled shriek. Donovan recoiled, looking like I had just set fire to his car. Bryce went rigid, his face turning red, caught somewhere between shock and anger. And me? I just stared at him. Then, in the quietest voice I had ever used, I whispered, "Then you deserve each other." The silence was deafening. No one moved. No one breathed. I let my words hang in the air for a few seconds longer, then turned on my heel and walked away, leaving behind a room full of stunned, cake-covered people. I didn't look back. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, but my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The second I stepped outside into the crisp Connecticut air, my legs felt unsteady. My fingers trembled as I pulled my phone from my purse, but I wasn't sure who I was going to call. My best friend? A divorce lawyer? A moving company? I took a deep breath, trying to process what had just happened. Bryce had thrown me under the bus in front of his entire family, not just passively but actively, like my hard work and success meant nothing compared to his brother's struggles. Struggles that included getting kicked out of a Miami nightclub for throwing a bottle at a bartender. I should have seen it coming. Maybe deep down I had. Before I could fully collect myself, the door behind me swung open and heavy footsteps followed. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. "Are you serious right now?" Bryce's voice was tight with anger. "You humiliated me in there." I turned to face him, feeling a sharp rush of disbelief. He was humiliated? "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, my voice icy. "Did I embarrass you?" "Must be tough, Bryce, being publicly called out for being a spineless husband." His jaw clenched. "That wasn't necessary. You could have just what? Hand over my watch like some obedient little wife? Like all my work, all my accomplishments mean nothing." I took a step closer, my fury rising with every word. "You didn't even hesitate, Bryce. The second your mother suggested it, you agreed. Do you even hear yourself?" He exhaled sharply and raked a hand through his hair. "I was trying to keep the peace." I laughed. A real, hollow laugh. "You weren't keeping the peace. You were choosing them. Like you always do." He flinched at that, which told me I had hit a nerve. Good. He needed to hear it. "This isn't about a watch," I continued, my voice quieter now, steadier. "This is about the fact that I will never be as important to you as your family's approval." Bryce's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. I shook my head. "You know what's funny? I would have given Donovan something if he actually needed it. If he was struggling to pay rent, if he was in real trouble. But he's not. He's just entitled. And your mother thinks I should reward that." I could see Bryce struggling to find the right words, but it was too late. There was nothing he could say that would fix this. Footsteps approached, and I glanced over his shoulder to see Donovan stepping outside, Diane right behind him. Her face was pinched with barely contained fury, while Donovan just looked bored, like all of this was a mild inconvenience. "I hope you're happy," Diane snapped, crossing her arms. "That cake cost $3,000. I stared at her, dumbfounded. That's what she was concerned about? "You know," I said slowly, "I really don't give a damn about your cake." Diane esched in a sharp breath, her lips pursing like she had just tasted something sour. "Mom, just let it go," Bryce muttered. "No," she hissed, "I will not let it go. I have put up with her attitude for years, and now she pulls this? Embarrassing the family in front of everyone." "Embarrassing the family?" I echoed, incredulous. "You asked me to hand over my own watch to your failure of a son like it was some kind of family heirloom. You do realize how insane that is, right?" Donovan scoffed. "Jesus, it's just a watch, lady. Relax." Something inside me snapped all over again. I took 2 steps forward, stopping right in front of him. "Say that again." His smirk wavered just slightly. "No, really," I pressed, tilting my head. "Say that again, Donovan. Tell me how it's just a watch, after you sat there grinning while your brother tried to give it to you like I was some kind of charity." Bryce muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. I was done playing nice. "You have never worked for anything in your life," I said, my voice sharp. "You have been handed everything, and somehow, that still isn't enough for you. So no, I'm not giving you my Rolex, and you can tell your mommy to stop acting like I kicked a puppy just because I told you all to go to hell." Diane gasped. Donovan's face darkened. Bryce looked miserable. Good. I took a deep breath, adjusting my purse strap. "I'm done here." Then I turned on my heel and walked to the parking lot, my hands shaking. I had barely reached my car when I heard Bryce call my name again. "Wait." I stopped but didn't turn around. I heard him sigh, and then, in a softer voice, he said, "Are you really gonna throw everything away over this?" I turned slowly, looking at him like he had lost his mind. Bryce, you threw everything away. Not me. His face twisted, like he wanted to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. I got in my car, slammed the door, and drove away, leaving him standing there in the cold. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My brain felt like it was on fire, replaying everything that had just happened. Diane's audacity, Donovan's smug face, Bryce's complete and utter betrayal. It didn't feel real. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wasn't sure where I was going at first. Home? No. I couldn't go back there yet. The thought of walking into that house Bryce and I shared, pretending like anything about our life together was still normal, made me want to scream. So I did the only thing I could think of. I drove to my best friend's house. Clara. The one person in my life who had always seen through Bryce's family's bullshit. She had warned me, more times than I could count, but I never wanted to believe it would get this bad. When I pulled into her driveway and rang the doorbell, it took less than 10 seconds before the door swung open. Clara took one look at my face and said, "Oh, hell no." What did they do? I let out a shaky breath. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside immediately. "You don't even have to ask." The second I walked in, the dam broke. My body started shaking, my throat closed up, and before I could stop myself, I was crying furious tears, not from sadness, but from sheer frustration, from the utter insult of what had happened tonight. Clara wrapped me in a hug before I could even try to pretend I wasn't falling apart. "That bad, huh?" she murmured, rubbing my back. I sniffed, pulling away. "Worse." We moved to the couch, and she handed me a glass of wine without even asking if I wanted one. That was the thing about Clara, she always knew. "Okay," she said, tucking her legs under herself. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Diane's demand, about Bryce's betrayal, about the Rolex sinking into the cake while everyone stared at me like I was the crazy one. By the time I was done, Clara looked like she wanted to commit a felony. "Are you kidding me?" she practically yelled. "He actually agreed?" Bryce actually opened his mouth and said, "Yeah, honey, let's just give my failure of a brother your Rolex like it's a damn party favor." I let out a humorless laugh. "Pretty much." Clara shook her head in disgust. "Oh, you need to leave him." I stayed silent, staring down at my wine glass. She softened. "You were leaving him, right?" I hesitated. Not because I wanted to stay with Bryce, God, no, but because the thought of unraveling 5 years of my life was exhausting. The house, the assets, the mess of it all. Clara saw my hesitation and groaned. No. Do not do this thing where you start doubting yourself." She grabbed my hands. "I know it's overwhelming. I know it's easier to ignore it, to hope he'll change. But he won't, babe. This is who he is." I swallowed hard. "I know." She sighed, leaning back. "So what now?" That was the question, wasn't it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Bryce. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Clara narrowed her eyes. "What does he want?" I shook my head, unlocking my phone and opening the texts. "Bryce, we need to talk. Please answer. Don't do anything stupid." I scoffed. "Oh, he's got some nerve." Clara peered over my shoulder, reading the messages. "What exactly does he think you're gonna do? Set his car on fire?" I smirked. Tempting. Then, another message came through. "Bryce, my mom says you owe her an apology." I laughed. A deep, almost hysterical laugh, because at this point, what else was there to do? "Clara," I said, holding up my phone, "his mother thinks I owe her an apology." Clara took a deep, slow breath. "Okay, so, hypothetically speaking." I raised a brow. "Yes, if I were to commit a violent crime against Bryce's entire bloodline," she said, sipping her wine, "would you testify that I was with you the whole time?" I snorted. "Absolutely." We both dissolved into laughter, though mine still had an edge of bitterness. Then, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a photo. A photo of Donovan, wearing my Rolex. Clara and I both stared at the screen in stunned silence. Then, another text from Bryce. "Bryce, I figured you wouldn't want it after what happened. So I gave it to him anyway." Everything inside me went cold. Clara let out a slow, disbelieving breath. No way." I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. Not from heartbreak. Not even from shock. From rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. I stood up so fast my wine glass nearly toppled over. "Where are you going?" Clara asked, wide-eyed. I clenched my jaw. To end this. And for the first time all night, I meant it. Clara scrambled up after me, nearly spilling her wine in the process. Hold on, what do you mean, to end this? I grabbed my coat, my mind running at 100 miles per hour. I mean, I'm going to Bryce. Right now. To do what, exactly? She reached for my arm, her grip tight. Because if this is a murder situation, I need at least an hour to find a solid alibi for both of us. I exhaled sharply. I'm not going to murder him. Clara eyed me. You sure? Because that look on your face says otherwise. I didn't even know what I was planning to say to Bryce. All I knew was that I couldn't let this slide. I had already walked out of that baby shower humiliated, knowing that everyone in that room would be talking about me for weeks. And now? Now, he had given Donovan my Rolex after I had made it very clear what that watch meant to me. It wasn't just disrespect, it was a final declaration. A message that screamed, you don't matter. What you want doesn't matter. And I wasn't about to let that stand. Clara let out a long breath. Fine. If you're doing this, I'm coming with you. I hesitated. Clara, nope. Don't. Clara, me. You think I'm letting you march into the lion's den alone? Absolutely not. You need backup. I didn't argue. Because honestly, she was right. The drive to my house felt endless. My hands were tight on the wheel the whole way, my jaw locked as I replayed every smug expression Bryce had ever worn when he thought he had one. When he thought I would just let it go. Clara sat beside me, arms crossed. I swear, if he so much as breathes like an a-hole, I'm flipping the damn table. I didn't respond. My thoughts were too sharp, too focused. When we finally pulled up to the house, Bryce's car was in the driveway, but the lights in the living room were dim. He was home. Good. I slammed the car door shut and stormed toward the front door. Clara was right beside me, cracking her knuckles like she was about to start swinging. I didn't even hesitate. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and walked in like I owned the place. Because I did. Bryce was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, startled. Jesus, don't you knock? I let the door slam behind me. Don't you dare. His brows pulled together. What's your problem now? I almost laughed at that. The sheer stupidity of the question. I pulled out my phone, held up the picture. The one of Donovan wearing my watch. Bryce barely blinked. Oh, he said, completely unfazed. That? Clara made a noise beside me, one that sounded like she was seconds from launching something at his head. I took a slow, deep breath. Tell me you didn't actually do this. Bryce leaned back against the couch, looking bored. Bored? What did you expect, huh? He asked. You threw the damn thing in a cake. What? Did you think you were gonna get it back after that? I took a step forward. It was mine. Bryce scoffed. It's a watch. There it was again. That same dismissive attitude. That same tone he had used when he let his mother walk all over me. When he let Donovan win. I could feel Clara tense beside me, waiting for me to lose it. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I tilted my head and studied my husband. Tell me something, I said, my voice eerily calm. Did you even hesitate? Or did you hand it over the second your mommy told you to? That struck a nerve. His jaw clenched. Oh, come on, no, seriously, Bryce. I crossed my arms. Did you even think about what you were doing? Or was it just instinct at this point? Obey mommy, make sure precious Donovan gets what he wants, and screw over your wife in the process. He had the audacity to look annoyed. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I let out a slow, bitter laugh. You gave my watch to another man. You chose them over me. Again. And you don't even care. Bryce sighed heavily, running a hand down his face. No, don't, I snapped. Don't feed me some pathetic excuse, Bryce. I just want you to admit it. Admit that you never gave a damn about what I wanted. Admit that this marriage was always about making them happy, not me. The silence stretched between us. And then, Bryce said the words that sealed his fate. I don't see why this has to be such a big deal. Clara let out a sharp breath beside me. And me? I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because I had my answer. And now? I was done. I looked at Bryce, really looked at him. The man sitting on my couch wasn't my husband. At least, not the version I thought I had married. He wasn't my partner. He wasn't someone who valued me, respected me, or even saw me as his equal. No, Bryce was comfortable. Comfortable taking my success for granted. Comfortable letting his family treat me like an outsider. Comfortable throwing me under the bus when it suited him. And the worst part? He genuinely didn't see a problem with it. He thought I would stay. That's when I knew my revenge wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be some dramatic, fiery explosion. It would be quiet. It would be calculated. It would be final. I turned to Clara, handing her my purse. Hold this. She gave me a wary look but took it. Why? What are you? I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a suitcase. The same one I had taken on my last business trip. The same one I had bought with my own money, just like everything else in this damn house. Then, I marched into the bedroom and started packing. Clara followed, eyes widening. Oh, we're doing this. Okay. Bryce stormed in after us, his face contorted in confusion. What the hell are you doing? I folded a blouse and placed it in the suitcase. What does it look like? You're leaving. I didn't even look at him. Very good, Bryce. You get a gold star. His expression shifted, panic creeping into his features. Come on. You're really going to throw away our marriage over a watch? I stopped packing for a second and turned to him. No, Bryce. I'm throwing away our marriage because you're a weak, spineless man who let his mother and brother walk all over me for years. The watch was just the final straw. He scoffed. So that's it? You're just giving up. I smiled. No, honey. I'm just finally letting you have what you clearly want. He blinked. What does that mean? I zipped up my suitcase and stood tall. You, your mommy, and your freeloading brother can be one big happy family without me getting in the way. Then, I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen a few times. Bryce's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, brows furrowing. What is this? That, I said sweetly, is an email confirming that I've removed you from all my credit cards. His head snapped up. Wait, and the shared bank account? I continued. Oh, and the mortgage? It's under my name. So I hope you and Donovan enjoy living with your mother. His face drained of color. You wouldn't. I grabbed my suitcase and walked past him. I already did. Clara let out a low whistle. Damn. That was cold. I love it. Bryce looked shocked. Completely, utterly shocked. Like he had never even considered that I might actually leave. Wait, he said, scrambling after me. Let's just talk about this. I reached the door and paused, turning to face him one last time. You know, Bryce? I tilted my head. You never once stood up for me. Not once. And now you expect me to stay? To fight for you. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. I fought for you for 5 years. I'm done fighting. And with that, I walked out. Clara and I drove away, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. No screaming. No crying. No begging. Just peace. Clara glanced over at me, a small smile playing on her lips. So, what's next? I exhaled, staring ahead at the open road. Whatever the hell I want. And for the first time in far too long, that was a future I actually looked forward to.